morning back and welcome to episode 2 of Can I Zero. What we're going to do today are 3 things. First, we're going to jump in and we're going to get the baseline of where we stand, things like meter readings and the like, and just capture that information. Second, we're going to get out in the field and we're going to start some carbon mitigation exercises. And finally, we're going to dig in and we're going to start looking at what the average Australian emits in terms of carbon dioxide into our atmosphere. Pretty exciting results. My mind was blown by the time I got to the end, so hopefully you'll stay for the journey. And if you're here for the real journey, the journey of helping to save our planet from man-made climate change, please click subscribe now so you can come with us the whole way. Let's get on with it.
Okay, so power meter. Let's have a look at this. So we've got 2 numbers here because this is measuring pulses in both directions. So 31513, which I assume is our consumption, and negative 29631, which I assume is the power that we've pushed out to the grid. So up until now, just interestingly, we're a little behind. So we're consuming, therefore, about half of what we produce and exporting just a little under half, which is not a bad position to be in terms of overall, but the fact is we're still using quite a bit of incoming power. Now, that meter was installed around the time our solar was installed, so that's a pretty good long-term baseline for us to work with. Now, gas meter starting position. Now, this is a new gas meter. It was only installed a couple of days ago. I'm struggling to see that because of the slats. So it's reading 7149 cubic meters, which is an interestingly large number given it was only installed a week or so ago. Okay, so this is the Toyota, what we commonly refer to as the torpedo, odometer 141394.
Okay, so we've got the various readings from the meters, from the vehicles. Nothing much to say here really, other than we're just going to record them, and we'll probably come back and look at them on a weekly initially and then later on monthly basis to see how we're travelling. Okay, Happy New Year. So we're on our way. Our program started. And as I said earlier, one of the things that I really want to focus on is actually taking actions and not just talking, arguing, fighting over things, but actually doing things, measuring them and seeing how they work. So planting trees is one of those things that's talked about as a definitive way of mitigating the impacts of global warming. So I'm going to plant some trees. No one really uses this area. I've never seen kids playing in it, playing any sport, anything like that. So it's just a nice green space. I figure there's going to be no harm having 20 or 30 trees in here. No one's going to miss out if we plant a few more trees in this area. So I've chosen my timing badly. 1st of January, it's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's full sun, not many clouds, probably about 35 degrees. Not exactly an ideal time to start digging holes in hard rock, but what the hell, let's do it. Okay, so day's work done, 4 trees planted, afternoon's work done. We've got this little guy. I don't think it's going to survive because there wasn't a lot of roots on it. I tried to dig it out. It's naturally seeded and the roots went down pretty deep and I only got a small portion, so I don't give him much of a chance. This guy here is off the Frangipani just across the road, and he's been disconnected for about a week, but there's no sign of any roots at all. But yeah, it's still green and maybe even signs of growth in here. This is still looking pretty good. So I don't know, I'm optimistic about that guy. This one here I bought about a week ago from Bunnings, and then I thought I was watering it, but maybe I wasn't because it's looking pretty sad. So net carbon absorbed 0 at this point. This is a long-term project, and you know, the reality is it's quite possible none of them are going to survive. So the fact that I've planted something is not the end. The end is creating a forest here, is having, you know, good ground cover and lots of leaves and carbon enrichment into the soil, as well as the trees themselves and the carbon absorbed directly in the trees. So still a long way to go on this one, but for day one it's a start. Okay, so now we've gathered our baseline, so we'll be able to measure our emissions as we go forward through the year. And we've started our tree planting exercise, and we'll be able to measure the impact of that over time. What we're going to do now is dig in to what our actual impact is. What are the emissions that we're responsible for? And we're going to do that in 2 ways. So the first piece is really taking Australia's emissions as a whole and dividing that on a per capita basis to understand, on an average basis, how much we're responsible for in terms of emissions. And then the second thing, and the important thing, is we want to try and make it tangible. We want to try and understand just how significant those emissions are. CO2 is an odorless, colourless gas. We can't sense it, we can't feel it, we just don't know. And so once we've got the numbers, then we're going to just try and contextualise that and make some sense of it. So what we're going to do is dig into some data sources. And as you can see on the screen here, I've accessed 4 different data sources. The first 2 are measuring CO2 only, and that is from burning fossil fuels only. That's coal, gas, and hydrocarbons. The second 2 measures are broader measures. They don't include exactly the same things, but do, you know, particularly the 4th one from the Climate Action Tracker includes agriculture, forestry, cement, coal, steel, energy, and so on. So I think generally that's probably the best measure at the moment. We're going to dig into these in a lot more detail later, but right now, just to keep moving, we're going to take 23 tonnes of CO2e, and CO2e is equivalent. So that's mostly CO2, but there are other greenhouse gases that we create from our industries and from our lifestyles. And what the E implies is what's the equivalent CO2 of those other gases. So there are conversion factors that are utilised to bring us to that number. So we'll just talk CO2, but in reality we're actually talking CO2e because it's all the things contributing to global warming. So 23 tonnes per person, that's huge. That's a massive number. It's a big amount of anything when we think about it from an individual perspective. And breaking that down even further, if we think about it in daily terms, that comes down to 63 kilograms per day. I mean, we're talking the weight of a smallish person of emissions every day for every person in this country. That's crazy. And that's a gas. So to put that in context, I mean, here is a 5 kilogram gas cylinder. So that holds 5 kilograms of LNG, liquefied gas. So, you know, when we think 63 kilograms, that's 12, more than 12 of those cylinders on a daily basis. Now that cylinder has the gas liquefied, it's compressed in a very, very dense state. So when we think about gases in the atmosphere, I mean, they're not dense, they're spread out. So how big is that 63 kilos in terms of how much space it would take? So quickly jumping into a bit of chemistry and a bit of science, we can calculate the molecular quantity of CO2, the moles, so that's 1,400 roughly moles of CO2 daily. And by looking at standard temperature and pressure, we're able to calculate the volume of that gas. And that equates to 35,000 litres every day of pure CO2. So that's a 3.3 by 3.3 by 3.3 metre cube of pure CO2 gas being produced by each person in Australia, on average, every day. Now, CO2 in the atmosphere is dilute. We measure it in parts per million. And if you look at the trend of CO2 in the atmosphere over time, increasing every year, you'll see that the average now is around about 450 parts per million. And so that means that a kilo of gas, when it's in its natural dispersed state in the atmosphere, is going to take up a massively larger area. So we're starting to see these really significant volumes of gas in our atmosphere being produced by every Australian every day. Now, granted, we are one of the worst emitters per capita in the world, so not every country is going to be producing that amount, but it's still significant. You start to get a feel for how those numbers, if they're real, could be starting to add up to a material impact on our planet. So if those numbers are true, and they are really big, they're massive, where's that 63 coming from? I mean, I'm not convinced. I don't have a gut feel that tells me it should be 63. I can't visualize where that's coming from. Exhaust pipe of my car, maybe from power. We're going to have to dig into those. But at that number, it's mind-boggling. My mind is blown. This is way bigger than I was expecting. And, it brings into question the challenge that we're taking. Are we going to be able to mitigate all of that gas? That's 63 kilos a day that we're going to have to stop producing. It's really significant. So what next? Well, the next step for us is we're going to go to the next level of analysis into those figures. So we're going to dig into the detail of the emissions and identify what are the components that are adding up. Understand are they real? Where are they coming from? And then what we're going to do is we're going to progressively work through most of them or all of them, but we're going to pick one or two, or particularly to begin with, one of the big ones, and then we're going to start the process of minimizing, mitigating, elimination to see what we can do to reduce or eliminate that source of CO2 or other greenhouse gas from our lifestyle. So I hope you're enjoying the vlog so far. Thank you very much if you got this far, and I hope you're finding the journey interesting and intriguing. Certainly I'm spun out at this stage and probably a little nervous about how we're going to go forward and whether this is going to end up being a big failure. But, it's really important. Now, if you didn't see my earlier video, which goes into why we're here, why we're doing this, what was the reason that our family is keen to do that, just click over on this side. But more importantly, click on the purple logo. That's going to get you subscribed, so you're going to be able to join us for the whole journey. So please do that. And in coming episodes, my family's going to get involved. You'll be seeing more of them as we go forward. So thanks for coming with us so far. We're really looking forward to the next stage of understanding and trying to mitigate. And we'll talk to you again soon.